All right, I'm here with Jeff Chilton. He is the founder of Nammex, the first company to offer a complete line of certified organic mushroom extracts in the U.S. nutritional supplement industry. Jeff, welcome to the show, brother.
Joel, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Likewise, I've been following you and your company for years, and it's really just I don't want to say a dream come true, but just it's great to have you and that synchronicity that we were able to align and make this happen. I'm curious. You were really like a pioneer. I mean, now you see everyone doing mushroom supplements and companies. Everyone's talking about it more so. I still don't think it's getting the credit that it deserves. But I'm just curious. Like, how did you see this back in, I think, the 1970s? Like, how did you see this as this is something that people need to know? I want to bring Bert to this. I'm going to start a company.
I was born in the Pacific Northwest, raised in Seattle. Mushroom country. What is the Northwest known for? Rain. Mushrooms love rain and wet environments. So I was raised with that. I went to the University of Washington, and my field of study was actually anthropology because, look, this is the 60s, Joel. Things are changing, and I'm really interested in other cultures, how they're doing things because, look, I was kind of rejecting my own culture. I mean, that was why we had a counterculture. So while I was at university, I studied anthropology, but I also took a mycology course. I put the two together into what you could call ethno-mycology, which was the use of mushrooms for food, for medicine, and in for shamanic purposes. But what do you do when you graduate from university with a degree in anthropology in 1972?
Dig up
Not
fossils?
much.
Yeah, I don't know. What do you do?
Yeah, there's not much there for you, right? So I thought, well, God, it'd be really cool to learn how to grow mushrooms. And it turns out there was a mushroom farm, the only one in Washington State, in Olympia, Washington. I went there in 1973. I got a job. I was on the mushroom farm there for the next 10 years.
Wow.
Literally living with mushrooms. It was a very large farm growing 2 million pounds of button mushrooms a year. But the cool thing was is we had a Japanese scientist there who was our head of R&D, and he was growing shiitake mushrooms, enoki mushrooms, and oyster mushrooms. So that just broadened out. I mean, I was just like, I loved reading everything about mushroom growing and so on. So it was just a great time for me. And that was kind of how I got my start. I was there for 10 years, literally living with mushrooms.
That's amazing. What then? So you're living with mushrooms, and then what was the impetus to say, you know what? I think we should come out with a company and I'm gonna birth. People don't just start businesses just because there is drive, there's this passion, there's this this ignition that just says I have to bring this to the world because people need to know more about it. What was that day, or do you remember the conversation where you said, I think I'm going to do this?
Well, you know what? Working for a big company, it's very structured. You have the owner of the company, and in this case, he had sons working in the company, which was not an easy thing at times. So after 10 years, and look, at that time in 1983, I co-authored a book called The Mushroom Grower, a practical guide to growing mushrooms at home. And that was right after at that, I left the company, went out on my own. I started a spawn laboratory. Spawn is what we call the seed to grow mushrooms with. And then in 1989, I took my very first trip to China to an international conference on mushroom science. And oh God, that was just an eye opener because that's the birthplace of mushroom cultivation, and that's where we have all of the information for how to use these mushrooms. Traditional Chinese medicine, China and Japan was where all of the research was, and so that conference really was the same year that I started my business, Nammex. 1989, Joel. and look, I knew how good mushrooms were, not just nutritionally, but medicinally. And in a way, it's taken, what are we talking, 30 years for everybody to catch up?
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Jeff, I'm curious, looking back and even right now, again, I think there's still people are still not understanding the power of mushrooms, and I don't think I do. I don't think I even give them the credit that they do. I have my supplements, and from time to time I will take mushroom stuff, but even me, I don't think I think I might discredit them. What do you think is surprising that you know about mushrooms that just most people don't even know?
Well, for one, the fact that mushrooms are very high quality as a nutritional food. I call them the forgotten food, the missing dietary link. I mean, literally, when I was at the mushroom farm and started there in 1973, classical nutritionists said mushrooms have no food value. They're great as a garnish or good flavor and all that. No, why did they say that? Mushrooms are low in calories. No calories, no food value. Well, the fact is mushrooms are a nutrient-dense food. They have a good quality protein. If you're a vegetarian especially, a good quality 20 to 30% protein. Majority of carbohydrates, but high quality carbohydrates. The cool thing about mushrooms is they don't contain starch. Their carbohydrate is a slow acting carbohydrate called mannitol, which is something that digests very slowly, which is what we want. Starch, is one of those carbs that up goes the glucose level and down it goes. Mannitol, very slow acting carbohydrate. The other carbohydrate that mushrooms have that is really cool is called a beta glucan. And the beta glucan makes up 50% of the cell wall of the mushroom. And one of the things about beta glucans and mushrooms in general, high in fiber. Lots of fiber in a mushroom. So you're eating mushrooms, that's going to feed your microbiome too. The beta glucan, though, what we've found out is the beta glucan actually potentiates our immune system. Oh my God, hello COVID, hello, viruses, hello any of that, right? Eat your mushrooms, everybody. No, and that's something, of course, that when COVID came along, everybody was like, oh, immune products smart people were dealing with alternatives and looking at, you think about what they were talking about with vitamin D, for example. Oh God, why weren't they giving vitamin D away on the street corners, Joel? For goodness sakes. I
You
mean,
can't make money off vitamin D, Jeff. That's why everybody knows
yeah,
that.
I know. But here's something that's really cool is that mushrooms have a compound called ergosterol, which is the fungal sterol. It's similar to our glycogen, or a cholesterol, sorry. And what happens is when you expose a mushroom tissue to UV, that ergosterol turns into vitamin D2. When we get our vitamin D from the sun, it's basically on our skin and it's changing the cholesterol into a pre-vitamin D3. So it's really cool. And one of the things that we're working with right now is exposing our mushrooms to UV light to boost up the level of vitamin D in it, so you actually have what we might call a plant-based, mushrooms aren't plants, based vitamin D, and we can get as high as 20,000 IUs per gram.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? And that is just like one of the really cool benefits of mushrooms. But again, we can talk about the benefits, the ergosterol, the beta glucans. The beta glucans is a story in itself that we definitely will talk about. But what I tell people always is, look, eat mushrooms. Put them into your diet. Do you ever eat like shiitake mushrooms?
My wife and she makes eggs every morning with some shiitake. Believe it or not, yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
I love shiitake mushrooms. I was eating fresh shiitake mushrooms in the 1970s while I was at the mushroom farm. It is a fabulous mushroom. Not only does it have tremendously wonderful flavor, but also shiitake is a premier functional mushroom. I say put mushrooms into your diet, make shiitake, introduce yourself to shiitake because it is just amazing.
Let's talk about those medicinal properties, because we have mushrooms, and the everybody knows the Bella mushrooms or the button mushrooms, and those are your standard. But then there's this subcategory that not a lot of people really know about. It's the medicinal, and maybe you can even touch and tie that into the beta glucans, because I'm very interested in that, and I didn't understand how they worked. And you can actually correct me. I was talking to a practitioner. He said, Joel, these beta glucans are so amazing. He said it actually tricks the immune system. And maybe you can talk, the way he explained it is that it actually, your body almost, I think, reads it as like a problem. And so it actually increases or stimulates, I think you used to use the word potentiates the immune system. And so, talk about these medicinal properties. Talk about the beta glucans and why they're so powerful for us.
Well, with the beta glucans, it's interesting. We actually have receptor sites in our intestines specific to beta glucans. People have tried to figure out, okay, why is that? A lot of speculation is that they're there because should there be any kind of a poisonous mushroom or other fungus that possibly is challenging us in some way, that will trigger these beta glucans, and what happens is that will then stimulate the production of very specific cytokines, macrophages, NK cells. So this is what is actually happening when we're consuming these mushroom beta glucans, is they're hitting those receptor sites. Now look, one of the things about mushrooms is to some degree they're very non-specific. They're working in the background. So you can be consuming them and you're going like, I don't feel anything. Well, do you feel anything when you take a vitamin? It's it's kind of like, no, you're not going to feel anything. I mean, some people might go, oh yeah, I've been taking lion's mane for a week or two or whatever, and I'm starting to feel something. And some mushrooms, like let's say a psilocybin mushroom, you'll go, oh yeah, I feel something immediately, right? So, but generally speaking, these mushrooms are working in the background. There's something you just need to incorporate into your diet, into your supplement regime. They're going to be there, basically helping you face these challenges that are out there, and they can really help us with our immune system and just give it that extra boost, or again, I like to say potentiation, because that's how I look at it. A lot of times people will use stimulation, pretty much, but potentiation is kind of, they actually call the beta glucan a biological response modifier. So it's going down, they're hitting these receptor sites, and they're just, we're just kind of like, okay, we're sitting here ready if you need. And I don't like to talk about health and disease as like, oh, I gotta fight this disease. It's like, I look at it as a challenge. We're trying to stay in balance. That's what we're doing health-wise, and it's not a matter of I gotta fight this and I gotta fight that. Then you're just setting your body up for this whole different kind of, aspect. So I look at it more. It's almost a Eastern thinking in a way, where you're looking at it as like, okay, let's try and bring ourselves back into harmony. And there's certain herbs out there that are called adaptogens, and that's kind of what they're designed to do, is to help us maintain harmony and balance.
I love that. Talk about, there's some of the top ones. We've got chaga for immunity. You've got a turkey tail. I've heard great things about turkey tail for cancer. I'm sure you can't say that, but I mean we see that in the textbooks for the Eastern medicine, like you talked about. You've got reishi for sleep and rest. What are some of your favorites?
Well, look, I definitely want to talk about, but before we do, let me just explain a little bit about what we call a mushroom, because it's like the term is used in so many ways out there, some of which are not correct, and so I like to at least explain a little bit about what we're talking about, because this is a fungal organism. And it starts with spores. You know, mushrooms don't have seeds, Joel, so how do we grow mushrooms? There's no seeds. Good God, what are we doing? So mushrooms have spores. These spores in nature, they float out on wind currents. They land on the ground. They land on wood. When they germinate into a very, very fine filament called a hypha. When multiple of these filaments come together, they form a network. That network is called mycelium. That mycelium is what we call the vegetative body. That's actually the body of this organism. We normally don't see it because it's underground, or maybe it's embedded in that piece of wood, or maybe it's inside that tree trunk that's attacked. So the mycelium is the body of this organism when conditions are right, like in Idaho or the Pacific Northwest, which is basically fall. Temperature goes down, humidity goes up come the mushrooms. You know, it's raining, so it's a perfect environment for the mushroom to come up. The mushroom comes up, it goes through its growth stages from a very, very small little thing to a full-sized mushroom with a stem and a cap. Underneath the cap normally are gills, or in some cases pores. Those gills or pores will produce the spores. Now we have a completion of this life cycle. The important thing to remember is we have what is called in the supplement industry 3 different plant parts. Okay, these are fungal parts, but you know, when you buy a supplement, they have to tell you, what are you getting here? Are you getting a root? Are you getting a leaf, a flower? What are they actually giving you? Because
the
each
fruiting
one
body,
has,
the mycelium, like what?
Well,
I don't even understand it.
Exactly, and it's like very important because different parts of the plant or fungus will have different amounts of the specific compounds we're looking for. So there are 3 parts that we're dealing here. We're dealing with spore, we're dealing with mycelium, and we're dealing with mushroom. And so the mycelium is the vegetative body, the mushroom is the fruit body. But again, 3 plant parts. You have to be aware of that, and you have to be looking at the label of any supplement you're taking. Does it say? They have to tell you. That is part of the rules and regulations of supplements. They have to tell you. These days, the issue is that a lot of companies out there are growing mycelium. Okay, mycelium's fine. You know, I mean, mycelium has medicinal benefits, just like the mushroom. Not as many. The mushroom is much more complex. You know, you think about psilocybin mushrooms or something. Are they out there psilocybin mushrooms you want to take, or are people selling us mycelium grown on grain or something? So there are companies that actually grow fungal mycelium on grain. They grow it out for 30 to 60 days. They then dry it, grind it to a powder, and sell it in the supplement market as
Jeff,
mushroom.
On that note, why is it a problem to grow it on grain? Is it because of the GMOs and the glyphosate, or what are we worried about?
No, the issue, Joel, is that product is up to 90% grain. And so what you're getting when you buy that product is mostly grain starch. Now, you're thinking you're getting a mushroom. You're not getting a mushroom. You're not even getting 100% mycelium. There are products that are being produced in China that are 100% mycelium. Fine. But these people and these companies are selling a product that they call mushroom. They're mislabeling it, but it's mostly grain. And are you familiar at all with the food called tempeh?
Yeah, I never have it, but I know of it.
Well, do you have any idea what tempeh is?
No, I think to me it's some kind of fake food.
Well, look,
that's probably why I never eat it.
Well,
sorry,
no,
vegans, don't attack me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No. Look, it's just interesting because tempeh is is cooked soybeans with fungal mycelium on it. So, and it's a major food out in Indonesia and these kind of places. It's a good food. This is what they're selling you with these mycelium products. So when you're eating tempeh, you're eating mycelium, but mostly it is the soy that you're getting. It's a soy cake with mycelium. So these companies are growing out the same thing, fungal mycelium on a grain. It might be rice, it might be oats, it might be some other grain. They're drying it, grinding it to a powder. Now it's mostly grain powder, and they're selling it as mushroom. How the hell are they doing that? They are doing it, and that just tells you that, in terms of your labeling and in terms of all of your information that these companies are putting out there, they're wrong, but they're just kind of sliding through the door. And listen, here's what's interesting about that. In 1976, FDA came out with a compliance document. It said, you cannot call mycelium mushroom, period. You cannot call it mushroom. Well, of course it's not mushroom. It's the vegetative body of this fungus. It's a different plant part. So, and the problem is, you're not actually getting a lot of mycelium. You're getting mostly grain starch. Wow. And some of the top brands, that's what they're selling. And I did a study in 2015. It's called Redefining Medicinal Mushrooms. And in that study, I tested 95 different samples. I had dried mushrooms, I had our mushroom extracts, and I bought 40 products off the internet that were these, what I call myceliated grain products. We tested them all for beta-glucans. Okay, yeah, okay, let's test them. We tested them for beta-glucans, and one of the things in our test was it also gave us the amount of what are called alpha-glucans. Alpha-glucans are the starches. Well, mushrooms, high beta-glucan from, let's say, 25 to 60% beta-glucan, very low amount of alpha, which would be like a couple of percent. These products were the exact opposite. Wow. They were on average 5 or 6% beta glucan and 30 to 60% alpha, which are the starches. So basically, we could demonstrate this just through testing alone. And Joel, testing is what Nammex is all about. We love testing. We want to know what's in our products. That's important for us in terms of quality assurance. So here are all these products out on the market. They're not mushroom. They're actually mostly grain starch, and yet they're being sold as mushroom.
It's amazing. Jeff, you're not the first person to actually tell me this, and we were talking a little bit offline. So if I'm a consumer, other than, for me, it's really simple. Just go to Nammex.com and buy your stuff. But, if I'm just searching around, I'm looking at labels. Is there anything I can do to decipher these labels? Because they're obviously making it challenging. And then, I guess the other thing is, what should I also do to demand that if there's a brand that I'm looking at, because there's several brands out there, and I say, hey, I want to see your certificate of analysis. I want to see what would be some questions to ask them?
Well, first of all, here's really the key issue here is that if I grow shiitake mushrooms or even the button mushroom, I'll take it to market. It's a fresh mushroom, and let's say I get $5 a pound for my mushrooms. Okay, that's good. Mushrooms are 90% water. Supplements are dried powders. You have to dry those mushrooms out. They're 90% water. Now that $5, you have to get $50 for that same pound of mushrooms. The issue is you cannot grow mushrooms in North America and make a business, make a profit. The economics are not there. This is something I learned really early as a commercial mushroom grower. So we grow all of our mushrooms deep in the mountains of China. We process them there. You can't grow mushrooms. So if the bottle says grown in the USA or USA product, right away, that's one of these. You also look at maybe what they'll do sometimes is some of those companies will sneak in the other of a supplement, because you look at the supplement facts and they give you, okay, they're supposed to tell you, okay, what do you got here? Is it a mushroom? Is it, and they'll put that up there. But down in the other ingredients, they'll put myceliated rice or myceliated right away. Okay, yes, we know what we've got here now. So those are kind of some of the main ways you would do it. And the other thing too is just like, Look, call them up, ask them, hey, are you growing mycelium on a grain? Is that what's in your? And a lot of companies say, oh no, our product has mycelium, it has mushroom, it has spore. Nonsense. No, no, no. You can even taste these products, Joel, and they taste like flour. And you look at them, and they're very. Most of them are kind of lighter powders. They don't taste like a mushroom. It's like buy one of those reishi mushroom products. Reishi mushroom is bitter. I used to do this when I would go out to a trade show or something. I'd have a little thing of one of these
Jeff,
products.
I gotta cut you off because when I first started experimenting with mushrooms and other brands, and luckily I had heard you on a podcast, so I was like, oh, let me try this guy's brand, and you're 100% right. The difference in potency of I remember because I would do a lot of bulletproof coffee back in the day. So I would throw in a scoop of whatever I had of yours, reishi and chaga, and it was I mean, I was blown. I'm like, man, this is like bitter. I mean, I was
medicine, right?
Yeah, it was a different punch, if you will, compared to the other brands. And I thought, well, what's going on here? So anyways, you're right. Taste is huge.
Oh yeah. So I mean, and those are just some of the things that you just have to look for, Joel. I mean, you could call the company; they're just going to give you this line of whatever. Don't even bother. If it's made in the USA, you know what it is, and it is these grainy products, and that's really unfortunate because you're not going to get the benefits. And can you imagine if you go to your naturopath and your naturopath says, "Oh, geez, I'm going to prescribe you this mushroom product because you've got." Cancer or something like that, and he prescribes you one of these products, and there you are, you're consuming starch, and you've got cancer, and it's just like, man, it's unethical, is the way I like to describe it. Absolutely unethical.
Yeah.
So we've pushed back a lot, but we can talk if you want about sort of like specific mushrooms and what they're doing now. But I think the key thing, of course, that you and I are really know that has to happen is people need to be educated so that when they're buying one of these supplements, man alive, you want them to get the real deal.
Yeah. That's why we're here. And thank God you're going out and you're going on podcasts to make this more well known so we can get this education out there. So I love that you broke down that because I didn't know a lot about that, just how the mushroom is grown. That was very helpful. Let's go back to, which I actually think was my original question, which is about the medicinal mushrooms. And I asked you, hey, what is your favorite? Is it chaga? Is it reishi? Is it turkey tail? Is it lion's mane, which we know stimulates the brain and neurogenesis, and BDNF, I think it does. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe talk about some of the top three or just some of the ones that you really like or you've seen good results with.
You know what? If there's any one mushroom that, people go, well, if I just take one mushroom, what would it be? I would say reishi mushroom for sure. Reishi mushroom, it's interesting. When you start testing these different mushroom species, you learn a lot. Like, for example, reishi mushroom and turkey tail have the highest level of beta-glucans of all the functional mushrooms. Wow. I'm just like, well, maybe that's why they're so highly revered, because they have all these. So I would say reishi, it's got approximately 50% beta-glucans, which is super high. It also has compounds called triterpenoids. And these triterpenoids are what give you the calming effect. They're actually what makes reishi bitter, Joel. So if you're going, why is this stuff so bitter? It's the triterpenoids. And we measure the beta-glucans on every one of our products. We measure the triterpenoids. So reishi basically has these other compounds that most of the other mushrooms do not have. So for me, that gives reishi, puts it a little bit a cut above, and it's also highly revered in China, and it's in their art, it's in their architecture. You see it all over the place. It's really cool. So reishi, and I would say one for immunity, two, calmness, maybe sleep. It's been used for insomnia. Those would be the primary uses of reishi, and just overall general immunological potentiation for people. And it's considered to be very good for the liver. I was at a conference in China. I talked to a TCM doctor, and it was a reishi conference. He said, oh yeah, reishi is my number one herb for the liver. I thought, wow, That's really cool. So reishi, turkey tail is really great for immune potentiation. Um, we actually, this is kind of interesting. Turkey tail is wildcrafted in general, and they wildcraft tons and tons of it in China. But I don't like wildcrafting. Wildcrafting is like, all of a sudden out there in your mushroom grounds, of your local mushroom grounds, you go out there to pick your mushrooms in the fall, and here come in dozens of people sweeping through to gather all the mushrooms to put into the market and sell and all of that. It's like it's just not a good practice. We actually developed over the last 3 or 4 years the cultivation of turkey tail. We're the only company in the world that cultivates turkey tail on a large scale. And I just love this because now we've got a product that is much more standardized. Sometimes with wild harvest, people are throwing things in that are kind of lookalikes, but they're not. Chaga is really interesting because chaga is not a mushroom. Have you ever seen a chaga?
Yeah, it's it. I mean, no, I actually no, I take that back. No, I have seen it. It's like a birch seed or something.
Well, the chaga is like this gnarly black thing, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It grows off the side of birch trees. You've got it in your area. You could go out in the birch forests or alder forests, and you could find chaga in Idaho, no question about it. But it's also wildcrafted because you can't grow it, and one of the reasons why you can't grow it is because it's not even a mushroom. Chaga is actually a fungus that attacks the birch tree. It's a parasitic fungus, and as the tree tries to stave off this infection, it produces this what we call a canker. And okay, we're not going to go out there and say, oh yeah, we're selling cankers to people. They're like, what? So chaga would get called a mushroom, right? But it's actually this mass, this gnarly black mass. It's been used traditionally for stomach issues. So I'm always saying to people, look, if you have IBD, Crohn's, something like that, try chaga. Give it a shot. It's also been used as a folk remedy for cancer, which we can't talk about, of course.
Right. Can't say anything that heals that. No. Why would you?
I know. So, but it's kind of cool. Again, it's not a mushroom; it's this black mass, but it's kind of cool, and it's really gained a lot of traction out there. And look, one of the things I want everybody to understand: the internet. There's lots of companies selling products, and my God, Joel, some of the hyperbole in sales, and it's happened with mushrooms, and it's happened with chaga. Chaga's the king of mushrooms. There's nothing it won't do. It's a panacea. It cures this, blah, blah. And I'm just like, God, stop. Stop this. This is crazy. This is not how it works. So I'm always telling people, calm down. And the companies that have to do that, I'm just like, oh man, that's just terrible. Those are the three, but we have one other that I'd call complements those and is our fourth sort of top seller, and that is cordyceps.
Yeah.
Have you heard of cordyceps at all, or had any experience with it?
Great for the lungs, right, and increasing oxygen.
Wow, absolutely. That's really interesting that you know that, because a lot of people would say, oh, maybe it's fatigue is one of the things with cordyceps that they've used it traditionally for, and cordyceps was wildcrafted up in Tibet and still is, and it's one of the most expensive herbs in the world. It's like $15,000 for a dried kilo.
Wow.
Can you imagine? And what that is, that's the wildcrafted cordyceps, which is called caterpillar fungus.
Let's go down to San Francisco and start selling that in the Tenderloin. Huh?
Well, San Francisco Chinatown probably sells a lot of it, but very few people like you and I are going to buy it because it's like, no, that's way too expensive. So we cultivate cordyceps. We cultivate a species called Cordyceps militaris. It's really cool. It's actually orange. It's orange. It's just this beautiful. And cordyceps, basically, they that whole genus grows off of insects, and it's not a it looks like a mushroom. It looks like a little blade of grass. In fact, the wild-crafted cordyceps they call winter worm, summer grass, because when they harvest it, it's a caterpillar with this little kind of blade-like mushroom growing off it, and they're on their hands and knees combing through the grass trying to find these things. And when they find them, they pull back the ground, the earth, and they pull out this caterpillar. They sell it with the caterpillar.
Wow.
And can you imagine? I tried to sell that to the industry back in 1991. I was out there showing it to people at one of the natural food expos, and they looked at it and went, well, my customers don't eat insects, actually. They're vegetarian. Look, they're vegetarian, and we don't eat insects, and they considered it like meat. And now it's kind of like, oh yeah, no, it's not. It's considered non-meat now. Insects.
Right.
That's hilarious, actually, because back then it was like people just looked at me like, nah, that's not going to fly.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's very cool. It's really good. Fatigue, or like you say, oxygen, and that sort of gets into why so many companies are using it for athletic products and things like that. Where I can see where it could help that, and even for altitude use, altitude sickness, and things like that. They use cordyceps in Tibet, and you can imagine, of course, you do, but they probably don't even use it anymore because it's like too expensive. I mean, literally, they're out there in the season, and there are thousands of people in Tibet that are out there looking for this. And maybe in one day you may only find 10 of these things, and each one of them may only weigh 1 gram.
Wow.
A lot of work for Tibetans, they're basically, it's a way to earn some money. But yeah, cordyceps, it's really cool.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that. That's so cool. I want to wrap some things up and then jump into some kind of final round questions for you. But I'm curious, any exciting projects for you and the company and Nammex?
Well, you know what? First of all, the whole vitamin D project we've got going, I'm very excited about. We've been in the works with this for about 2 years. One of the things about vitamins is that they have to be very stable. So we're doing stability tests on all of our products to make sure that the active compounds are not degrading over time. We have to give expiry dates to all our customers, things like that. With vitamins, Joel, some of these vitamins are not very stable, so they will drift down over time. So before we could even sell one of our mushroom powders for the vitamin D, we have to ensure through a lot of testing that after 90 days, 180 days, a year, that the amount of vitamin D that we put in the product is still there. Because otherwise, somebody goes out and buys it, and then maybe it gets tested even, and it's half of what it should be. Yeah. That's something we're going to be bringing out soon. Look, I just think it's really cool because it's a natural product. All it is a mushroom powder, period. Vitamin D3, which is what most people take, is a lanolin, comes from sheep's wool. They have to get the lanolin from the sheep's wool, and then the processing. Man, if you ever looked at the processing, Google it up some point. There's so many chemicals involved in getting that vitamin D out of the lanolin. And look, I don't care what kind of vitamin D you take vitamin D, put it into your regimen. But I'm really excited about bringing out this mushroom powder because it's got none of that kind of processing at all. So that's one of the projects. Another one is a compound that you should be thinking about. It's called ergothioneine. And ergothioneine is a compound that we find in different parts of our body where there's oxidative stress, but we don't produce it. We have to get it from external sources. Mushrooms are one of the top external sources, and there's a lot of research that's been done on ergothioneine in the last 15 years. Some people think it might even be a new vitamin, but they still haven't quite figured out exactly what it's doing or in these areas. What's what's going on here? With a vitamin, it really has to show like, okay, it's vitamin C, it's great for different things. So that's what they haven't figured out. But mushrooms are very high in ergothioneine. We're going to be coming out with a product soon. We have a product right now, but this is ergothioneine that we're buying that's made from yeast. Yeast is part of the fungal kingdom. But we want to replace it with just a straight mushroom powder again. And there is a specific species that is very high in ergothioneine. So we're going to be growing that and coming out with ergothioneine product. So these are a couple of projects I've been working on for a number of years. It takes time. God,
Yeah.
just like, man alive, it takes time. And a lot of it, too, is because we do so much analysis of our products. And when we put a product out, we want it to meet our specifications. The other thing we're looking at is, of course, this whole psychedelic thing is just blowing up everywhere as well. And one of the things, it's kind of funny, Joel, because I used to smoke cannabis back in the day, and I was always essentially an outlaw in that sense, right?
Right.
Doing something illegal for most of my life, and I'm like, and I thought I'm never going to see this legalized ever. And now they legalize it. Well, I haven't smoked cannabis in 20 years. maybe a joint here, a joint there, something. And it's like, yeah, now after all of that, being kind of an outlaw all those years, and always having to look over your shoulder, God, people going to jail for stuff like that. It was just insane. Well, now it's gotten to the point where they're looking at psychoactive mushrooms, for example, for mental health issues, for addiction issues. And I'm just like, man, I love this. This is so good, because that was part of my studies back in the 60s. And in Canada, we have the ability to get a license from the government to grow and work with these mushrooms. And so we're looking kind of forward to doing some research with that too, not necessarily to commercialize it, but just to do some research, because there's still a lot they don't know about the chemical profile of these mushrooms, and that's something we would love to work on, because that's what we do. We build out chemical profiles of every single mushroom that we sell, and that's very important to us. So we're really, we set the standards for the industry. We literally set the standards. In 2014 to 15, there were no standards for mushroom products.
Wow, that's hard to
believe. There were no standards.
Jeff, actually, you just brought up a question that I wanted to ask you. Because we were talking about this, and it's really shifted my way of coaching as a health coach, and thinking, like you mentioned, I was taught originally to like go in and kill the yeast, or go in and kill the bacteria, and then regrow the system. And now I'm really starting to see that there's actually a better way to do it, and actually just bring harmony to the body. Just give the body the right input. It will get rid of whatever it doesn't need to get rid of. And so I was just thinking, candida yeast overgrowth, for example. A lot of my clients will get that. If they're taking a mushroom that is like a fungus, will that exacerbate their yeast, or should they stay off of that for just a period of time, or is it actually therapeutic because it's just bringing the body back into harmony anyways?
Well, you know what, that's interesting, and that is actually one of those myths, actually, Joel, that's been out there since the 90s. It's kind of like like produces like. It's a very ancient kind of way of thinking, where I've got a yeast problem, so if I eat another fungus, it's somehow going to feed that yeast.
Right.
It doesn't really make sense, but there's this association of that. And look, a yeast is very different from a mushroom, and I know candida certainly is a problem for some people, but there's actually herbalists that use mushrooms to treat it. So no, that and I haven't really heard it come up for a long time. It was really kind of an issue in the 90s as more and more people were seeing naturopaths and so on. And one of the first issues that a lot of naturopaths would address would be candida. But the fact is that no, there's really no basis for that. I mean, if you go out there and search on that, you can't find a single scientific paper that has anything to do with that. It was just something that somebody, thought, oh, mushroom yeast, God, I don't want to, I'll feed this yeast mushrooms. Wait a second, is the mushroom going to, no,
Yeah. Yeah.
no, there's nothing credible about it at all.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Love that. All right. I want to jump into some final round questions, but just before I do, anything I didn't ask you that you wish I had?
Um, Not that I can think of. I guess, and again, what I'm really trying to get people to do is eat mushrooms, Joel, and put them into their diet, because I just feel so strongly about, even before people supplement, I'm like, put mushrooms into your diet, because you're getting all the fiber. The mushrooms themselves have the beta glucans. Because of the fiber, we don't digest them super well, but that's okay. It's a lot of fiber too, but you're getting benefits from it, and it's just such a great food. We lag way behind in the world in terms of our mushroom eating, so I'm a big proponent of that. And I tell people, do that before you even think about supplementing.
If anybody's watching on video, Jeff is in his 70s and he looks amazing. So he's a testament to the mushrooms for sure. All right, let's jump into some final round questions and we'll wrap some things up. I'm curious, man. Is there a choice that you think you made in your life, or were there some choices that you made that you think made you who you are today?
Well, you know what? Look, one of the choices I made and one of the paths I went down was in the 60s. One of the things about it, look, there was a war going on. My generation was being drafted, sent halfway around the world to kill people. Now, you had to make a decision. Are you going to go along with this or not? And one of the things that we discovered was that, hey, the government lies all the time. You cannot trust anything they say or what their mouthpieces like New York Times or other out, or the TV news or any of that. So, that was a turning point. Absolutely, for a lot of us, and we formed a counterculture. And man, there's a lot of discrimination against us too, and demonization as well. And I mean, look, Joel, they were literally burning Beatles albums.
Wow.
Can you imagine?
I can. You know what? I can imagine now, because the last 2 years, 2 to 3 years, you and I were talking before, I've been censored and I've watched what the government can do. And you know what? It's not surprised. History repeats itself. And so, yeah, I'm actually not surprised.
Well, yeah, no, absolutely right. And, it's just like I have friends who...
You were called a counterculture back then. They call people like you and I conspiracy theorists now.
Well,
so,
exactly. They've changed the names now,
yeah.
And we're conspiracy theorists, right? But it's like I have some of my peers who still watch the 6 o'clock news, and I'm like, God, what are you watching that for? That's not information. That's propaganda. Yeah. And they read the New York Times. I'm like, what are you doing? That's just the government pumping information through that channel. And it's like, I'm just like, and I really have a hard time even talking to them, because I can actually trigger them, Joel, with alternative information. And that's just, that's something really odd and strange, that people don't even want to hear anything unless it comes from an official source. And I mean, that's why they're so afraid of the internet. That's why the government is censoring the internet, and that's just going on and on and on. And certainly they found out about Twitter with once Musk took over and exposed what was going on there. So all the tech companies right now, they're working for the Gov. And what's interesting too is that so many government officials, whether it be the intelligence agencies or the FBI, have gone to work for the tech companies. Oh my!
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a huge issue. It's
a
huge issue, and it's very unfortunate, because you have to be careful about who you even talk to or what you say, and that should not be in a free country.
I agree. You guys are doing so much at Nammex in the health and wellness world. I'm just curious, who inspires you?
Let me see. There's a number of really top herbalists out there that I think have been doing this kind of work in terms of introducing a more holistic approach. One of the people I would say that comes to mind right away would be Andrew Weil. I mean, Andy Weil, his books have been so good in terms of diet. I don't know if you've read much of him, but he's got some great diet books and when I say diet, I mean talking about the role of food, how it works, what's a good diet, what's good to eat, what's not. So he's been really instrumental in my thinking on a lot of those type of issues because you know, diet is the foundation, Joel. I mean, we have to have a good diet, and that's the foundation of our health. And then everything else flows from that. Stay active, work out, stay active. Don't get caught up in addictions that are going to bring you down, like tobacco or alcohol. I mean, live somewhere where you've got fresh air, good, clean water. Oh, man. I just cry my eyes out when I see people buying all this bottled water out there. I'm just like, Joel, in Seattle, when I grew up in the 50s, the water was coming from us from a river system nearby. It was like nectar. Absolutely. We would take trips down to Los Angeles to visit my aunts and uncles. They were getting water out of a 5-gallon jug that was delivered to them every week. And I'm just like, God, what's going on? You couldn't drink the tap water. I'm like, that's scary to me. It's really scary.
Yeah. You mentioned Andrew Weil in books. I was going to ask you, is there like a top 1 to 3 books that had a huge impact in your life and you'd recommend other people go out and read?
Well, one of the top authors that I really love has been Aldous Huxley. Aldous Huxley has a couple of great books. One is called Island. He, of course, wrote Brave New World. He also wrote a book called Heaven and Hell, which is really good. So Aldous Huxley was really a major sort of influence on me. And other books, I love what Terence McKenna has written. If you haven't read any Terence McKenna, I highly recommend Terence McKenna. Food of the Gods. Read Food of the Gods, Terence McKenna. Really interesting book. And he's a very alternative type of but those books pretty much. And then look, I just dove into all sorts of mushroom books back in the 60s.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. Last 2 questions and we'll wrap it up. Any rituals or practices or hacks or anything like that you do on a regular basis?
Well, every day I have a workout that I do. I have my own kind of weight machine in the house, so I have a room. I do an hour workout with weights, and I have a couple of dumbbells that I use, and then I do some floor exercises that are to help my core. And these floor exercises are from a back doctor called I forget his name right now, but he's a very famous back doctor because, look, as you get older too, your back, even when I first injured my back when I was 25 years old, just lifting in the wrong way, and those things are really tough to get rid of. So I do that to strengthen so that's a ritual that is very important to me. The other ritual I have is getting up in the morning and drinking coffee.
You and me both. Probably many cups.
I love
3 to 4
coffee.
times a day.
Yeah, yeah.
The ritual continues.
Yeah, I kind of stop at 11 o'clock or so with my coffee drinking, and then in the afternoon I like to have green tea around 3 or 4 o'clock. And green tea's got great benefits as well. So those are things that I do, and I also, as much as possible, try to get out for a walk every day, get fresh air. I live in a community where we've got forests, lots of water around us. The air is pristine. So walking, keeping my body going, and those kind of things you have to do, otherwise you become an old stiff.
Yeah, very true. Jeff Chilton from Nammex, last but not least, where can people find you, connect with you, learn more about what you're up to?
Well, our website's nammex.com. We have a menu there that's education. Come to Nammex. Look at all of the educational material we have there because there's a ton of it. We are a business to business, so we sell to other companies. Nammex does, but we have a retail line called realmushrooms.com. There's also a lot of great information on that site too. So come, keep your education about mushrooms going. That's really why I want people to. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm just here to educate.
Amazing, Jeff. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate you, brother.
Joe, thank you. It has been my pleasure.